All right, so we're in what we are calling the boardroom.
Yeah.
Right.
So we're in the boardroom. There's secret information. What I call the future is right over here on this board.
Don't even mention it.
We can't show you the future.
No.
Cause some kind of rift in time.
Secrets.
That's right. So we're not even going to be able to show you what's over there. That's just a whiteboard with the future on it.
Flux capacitor.
That's right.
Just a drawing schematic for it.
So this is also your tasting room. This is where you create future recipes and everything. I know we've been through a tour of your barrel room, but walk us through again kind of what is in your barrel room. What do we see when we come into your barrel room?
So when you walk into the barrel room, your first thing that you're probably eyes are gonna go straight to is a big port cask.
Mm-hmm.
What you're gonna notice is that even as a small distillery, that we don't use small casks. Everything that we do production-wise is coming from 53-gallon barrels and actually larger casks as well. We use 60-gallon barrels as well to help slow down the extraction rate for the maturation of the whiskey.
Right, love that. And you get this beautiful smell. You can tell you get the wood and the whiskey right as soon as you enter in. And it's not even hot out. What's it like when it's August and it's 110?
Bourbon.
We can imagine.
Now, I don't know if we talked about when we were in the warehouse, how you're only partially filling some of the barrels.
That's a good
I don't know
point.
if we touched on that.
Right.
So yeah, we actually do a little bit lower fill when we fill up those barrels because they're going to extract so fast. They'll actually get out of balance with the oxidation that needs to happen in the barrel. And so we'll actually do about a 75 to 80% fill on our barrels as opposed to taking them all the way up like you'd see over the pond. So.
And that's one thing that was extremely interesting to me when you were walking us through the barrel room, is we know from when we were in Austin in the middle of the summer that it can get so hot that it's hard to keep whiskey. I know we're further north here with you, but they talked about how you can't keep it in the barrel as long because it just gets over oaked. So a lot of what you guys are doing is this experimentation with refill barrels and the partial fills so it's not over oaked. Am I right or am I off?
100%. Our goal, as we've always set out, again, coming from kind of that French tradition, is to slow things down. Texas, the big heat, I mean, we get plenty of color really quickly, you get tons of extraction, and you can really easily over oak whiskey. That's why a lot of people will say you can't age a Texas whiskey longer than 4 years. I think what Jonathan and I have been experimenting with is proving that that's not the case. But you have to keep everything in balance, and I think that's the biggest challenge that we have.
Love it.
All right, so we have a few bottles, a few of your offerings up here in front of us. Which one did you want to start with and walk us through?
I think we should start with Texas Legation. You want to start with Legation?
Yeah, the odd duck of the group.
The odd duck of the group, yeah.
So why is it odd?
So this guy is not available in the United States. This particular whiskey is actually put out by Berry Brothers and Rudd over in the UK. They actually came to a bunch of the Texas distillers a few years ago and were sending out emails. And Jonathan actually received the email. I don't know if you want to tell the story on that one.
Yeah, so it came in through our info account. And, we get lots of random things in there. Normally offers for me to help somebody in Nigeria so I can get a lot of money from a prince. And so we almost didn't answer the email at all. So it said, hey, we're from Berry Brothers and Rudd over in England, and basically we want you to send us samples because we're interested in maybe doing a project with you. And I about had it in the trash can on the email. I was like, I'll forward it to Rob and let him deal with it. So I sent it over to him, and Rob actually gave him a call, and it was not too much later we're getting phone calls from people with Scottish accents telling us that they wanted us to send samples over and that they definitely liked the samples we sent.
Love it.
So
yeah, we've got the UK sticker right on there.
So what happened? And so Berry Brothers and Rudd has been around since I think 1698. My memory serves correct on that. Been in the same building the entire time, so tons of history. Their building is right down the street from St. James Palace and from Buckingham Palace, and they've been the wine and spirit purveyor for the crown for hundreds of years. But 1842, they rented out the second floor of their building to the then country of Texas. And it was served as part of the Texas Embassy over in London. They called it the Texas Legation. It was an extension off the embassy because it was close to the royal palaces. So for 3 years, until Texas joined the United States, it served as the legation there. So to honor that, they wanted to release a Texas whiskey. So again, after contacting a bunch of the Texas distilleries, they loved what we were doing with the different grain bills. Even though at the time our whiskey was super young, and it's still not really old yet. It's not old whiskey yet, but they fell in love with what we were doing with the different corns and some of the barrel types that we're doing.
Wow.
And so their master blender, Doug MacGyver, does a blend of our whiskeys that's released in the UK every year. So it's kind of like handing your child over to someone else to let them finish raising it and putting it together. And so
It's good hands to put it into, though.
yes.
I get a lovely butterscotch on the nose.
Yeah, so this is, it's fun for us because it's a very different version of our whiskey. It's a lower proof than a lot of what we do. The only whiskey that we do that's near this is the Harbinger XC, the 90 proof.
Okay, so 46.2% ABV.
And so it's a little spunkier version. They have a little bit more rye cask than we generally have in the blends.
A little bit more of the flint cast, too.
Yeah.
Flint corn.
Wow, that comes off a lot. Almost higher than 46%.
It's got a lot of spice to it.
Yeah. Yep. Sweet, full.
Now, did they tell you how they'd heard of you originally, or?
They got the ADI list of Texas distilleries and went and looked at everyone that said they made whiskey. They contacted and said, "Do you actually make whiskey, or do you just source whiskey?" Because obviously that's a distinction,
sure.
and they wanted something that was really 100% made in Texas. So,
Beautiful.
so again, there's just a handful of us that are actually 100% making whiskey in Texas, and they fell in love with what we were doing. And so it's a really cool relationship. We've gotten to go over there, and that's been, when we were talking about going to Glengoyne, that's last time we were over the UK. That's where we went after the launch in London. We went up to Edinburgh and Glasgow and decided to go up to see Glengoyne.
I was going to say, because you've actually gone to, I was going to say Scotland or somewhere, but London, where you actually released Ironroot.
Well, yeah,
There.
this Texas,
was that
Texas
this one?
Legation.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so they haven't had our bigger, bolder stuff. Now we get requests for it all the time from them now that they want it. So we're slowly working on trying to get it out to the rest of the states, and then hopefully we'll be crossing over there with our main line of stuff.
Yeah, that's very, I think they treated your baby very well.
Yeah. Like you said, the rise,
did it good.
it's still bold. Huh.
Yeah,
Very
just kind
nice.
of a fun, very different expression of our whiskeys. So.
Well, have they done this with anyone else in Texas? I don't think they have.
No.
No.
Right.
No.
They've done this with us twice. So the very first batch was 6 barrels that they did, and then batch 2, which is what we just tried, they did this year, and they ended up ordering over 30 barrels of it this year. So
Yeah.
they've been enjoying the heck out of it, I think.
Beautiful.
It was pretty cool. When we went over there, they actually flew the Texas flag over Berry Brothers and Rudd.
Wow.
So we came around the corner, just kind of walking down the street, and we were thoroughly impressed. So
Holy
apparently they had to get permission from the crown in order to do it, so it wasn't an act of war. So,
Yeah. Yeah, you don't want an international incident.
so
Over whiskey, right? So
Wow. That is really nice. That is special. Yeah, like
Right.
if you look at the strap's got the Texas flag on it.
Always the strap.
The strap. Well, they layered it in.
it's layered on.
well, they actually let us have like my signatures on the front of the bottle, our stories on the back. So it was kind of nice because as opposed to just kind of taking it, bottling it, and not really having us be part of the story, they really kind of brought us into the family and made us part of that product.
Yeah. And I was looking because I noticed even last night, but now sitting here, Texas Legation Bourbon, distilled for Berry Brothers and Rudd by Ironroot Republic.
Beautiful.
They put it right on there.
Beautiful. Lovely.
Transparency, right?
All right, what are we reaching for next year?
Next, we're going to step it up a little bit. So, you guys have spoken about, I think in the Promethean video, you were mentioning the 115 proof bourbon. So, I figured that will be finally being released to the rest of the United States in January. So, I figured that would be a good time to grab it. So, that guy right there in the center, yeah.
Wow.
So we've got two Harbingers. There's this guy in this shape bottle that's 115. We have the other one that's called Harbinger XC that's also going to be released in January. That's a 90 proof version of this particular whiskey.
Oh, this one hasn't
So-
been opened yet.
Yeah,
you get-
Oh, look at that.
Yeah.
The original open. You need help there?
Somebody layered that.
Yeah, look at that. Yeah.
Too
This
tight.
is why I got to sit far, far away. You know, I'm going to give you a little help with something. Layer it right in on your face is what I'm going to do. I said layer.
I don't know if that's what I would have said.
That's what you would have said right there. Thank you, perfect. I want more of that, but I better be careful.
Yeah, so anyway, when we were down here in Austin in August for the Whiskey Vault Open, that's where we met y'all.
Yes.
We're out at a restaurant, it's Friday night, and we went through Daniel had him bring out several different Texas whiskeys.
Hey,
And the reason I think we're here and that we talked to you more was yours stood out.
Oh,
Ironroot Republic stood out.
Well, and Daniel comes out and says, you can't even get this in the stores anymore. This is one of the last restaurants that even has it.
From that batch.
Right, and I think you guys even said, yeah, even if you came to the distillery, we're out.
we don't have, well,
That was the 2017 version.
we got
Right,
one
yeah.
bottle sitting right
Yeah,
up there.
right, yeah, the one that Marcia's gonna steal soon.
We were impressed those bottles were even down there at the restaurant. So
Yeah.
I had no idea.
But no, I mean, the ones we had that night, Ironroot Republic, and that was the first time we had had your whiskey,
Yeah.
stood out, obviously, and here we are. But, so, Harbinger.
Harbinger. So Harbinger was the very first whiskey we ever released. Hence the name. Jonathan is the one that names all the whiskeys. So he's got a love for SAT vocabulary. So he loves it. Questioning myself and my mom on names, and as soon as we don't know what it means, then he's like, "That name, that's it. That's what we're doing.
that's the one.
That's the name."
The one they don't know.
So
I'd be like,
mysterious
Trap
now.
Bullwinkle. No, idiot. What an idiot.
the Bullwinkle blend.
The possum.
No, we call it opossum here. Yeah.
Well, it gets referred to as Harbinger sometimes.
There you go.
I already took a sip, and yeah, I mean,
Oh, it's just, even the nose is so rich.
yeah, the ABV, the depth of it.
Yeah. Why even tell me, I mean, I know everybody's nose is different, but I got like a hint of fig, like a rich fig.
With this guy, I always describe him as brunch.
Mm.
So, because I don't know if it just makes me hungry or what, but it's. I always think of it as more like maple syrup on pancakes
Yeah,
and some fresh
yeah,
fruit.
sure.
So it's.
Yes.
Yeah, it's got that sweetness.
Brown sugars, caramels.
Yeah.
And the fig, so that this guy is going to be made up of our purple corn, our bloody butcher, just a little bit of that flint corn, and then about 5% rye in the mash bill. So that purple corn really brings a lot of cinnamons and a lot of that kind of that fig and date type notes really come out of that purple corn, especially that purple corn in those European oak casks. So this guy's about 30 to 40% of the blend is generally going to be European oak for Harbinger.
Now, I've got to ask for the fans. I think I know some of the answer from asking you prior, but the availability. Obviously Texas, total, their stores. Anywhere else? I mean, I know you guys are still building the brand, but what's the availability?
The availability is in January. We have this batch will be hitting kind of the total lines in the rest of the country. So it's about 30 states that they're in, from California all the way to the East Coast.
Awesome.
So there's actually going to be more. There's more being sent out of state than what's in state. There's about 50 cases that were in state, 150 that are going out of state. We'll have the next batch of this will actually be coming a little bit sooner. This next year it'll be probably May time period. We'll be releasing in Texas the next batch, and then it'll be a little bit larger batch, and that will also go out to the rest of the country. So hopefully, if you don't, there'll be probably a case maybe maybe a case and a half at the different total wines across the country. If you don't get it in January, February, probably later this summer, you should be able to get a little bit more.
So if somebody's got a Total Wine Spirits close to them, they can reach out and say, hey, make sure you get this in.
Yes,
Yeah.
that'd be
That would be
fantastic.
great, yeah. So reach out, I'm telling you, if you want it, reach out and let them know.
Is this 100% corn?
No, it's going to be about 95% corn and 5% rye.
Yeah,
So it's just got a little bit of the rye in there.
'Cause I know you guys really don't do too much with rye yet.
No, the high ryes are all just babies in the barrels right now.
6-month-old.
Yeah, so they're. So you will see some other stuff from us that will have some higher rye, but right now we do our first kind of foray into whiskey was really exploring corn, and right now we're exploring rye and barley, and then who knows what will be next? Well, the flux capacitor up on the board might know what's coming
That's
next.
right, the future, it's right over there. Now, I can't even remember, what was the restaurant we were at down in Austin? You guys remember the name? And if you don't, that's fine. But I remember they brought us this in a rocks glass, the 2017 version. It was hot, they had their fans with the misters on them, we were outside, and...
It was the kitchen.
Yes, a district kitchen.
District
kitchen.
But it was, I was even somewhat concerned in the rocks glass because they just had an ounce pour, but it was so rich and velvety even there. And I was just like, wow. I mean, it really, because Daniel literally said, start with this, start with this. And he said, the only sad thing is you're going to want some, but you can't go get it. And I'm like, well, I got to have it now.
He only said that because we were sitting there.
No, I'm telling you. Because they came around and said, what do you want? Like that, Ironroot.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Delicious.
the nose is just, this is again one of those, and that I could just sit and nose for, I know some people say crazy, but I could nose this just for an hour. You know?
You're going to get blenders now.
Yeah, I know, I'll be like you. I'll end up having, we were talking about Jonathan will get a little, like a blister.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was just
I
nosing.
nose too hard.
He's a hard noser.
So we can tell whether he's using the wheeze or the big
there you
full
go.
size.
Whether it's
based on
down here.
Yeah.
down there, up there.
Yeah. Well, I can see why you'd nose this. I mean, this is, like I'm saying, I get the fig. I get these sweet touches of butterscotch in there. I mean, there's just
I don't know about
layers to
fig.
it. Oh,
It's
yeah.
your palate, but okay.
You don't get that sweet,
Well, I mean, there's
a
sweet.
rich, oily fig. Okay, it's still my nose.
Maybe you're layering it in.
Uh-oh.
Well, I like the way you talk. The use of the word layer. You can't overuse it. That's all I'm saying.
But I think what I love about some of the whiskeys, especially the cask strengths for us, they really showcase pot stills and what pot stills can do with grain spirit, because you don't see a ton of grain spirit being put out of pot stills. You usually see barleys, or you have the brandies that are coming out of pot stills, but really corn and wheat and rye are generally not put into a traditional pot still, and you can get some really bold, really thick whiskeys that can start coming out of those stills when you put in that corn. So it's been really a fun experience for us to really explore it.
We like our whiskeys thick.
Yeah. Yeah. Thick, viscous, rich.
Chew it.
Yeah. Love it.
Yeah, I can remember, well, when we first started reviewing, go back 5 years, 40% ABV was good. We would have cask strength stuff, and I'd just be like, whoa, my God, I need some water. Get some water in there.
Well, that would be for those that are, I mean, it's so rich. And what we also started to really love about cask strengths is as our palate grew, I could play with the whiskey. I could bring it down a little bit. I could say, oh, that's perfect right here. We could do it neat. And we started to really lean toward those higher proofs just because we were able to tailor it to our palate. We would find some of these that were brought in at 40, 43 even, and would say, wow, I wish I could have had this at maybe 46 or even a 50. And by getting those stronger strengths, you may want to take it neat right there, or you can play with it and bring it down right where you wish.
Absolutely.
That's half the fun of whiskey, isn't it?
Well, and I find it's from day to day. So even as people who
100%.
drink, 140 proof off the still, 120 something out of the cask all the time.
Yes.
It depends on the day on whether I may like it right out of the cask like that. We're in Texas. If it's 115 outside, I may take a little bit of water in my whiskey that day.
Yep.
So,
Yep. On real hot days in Wichita, Kansas, I'll throw a cube in there. And then enjoy a little bit of the process, even as it waters itself down, and just kind of enjoy the shift.
automated proofing.
Yep. Yep. All right, what is up next?
Up next is probably the whiskey we're most well known for, and that's going to be our Hubris. Which is kind of a funny way to put that.
We're egomaniacs.
Yeah, we're egomaniacs around here. So Hubris is our corn whiskey. That's again, I fell in love with it the very first year we released this. It was a single barrel that we just had back in the warehouse. It's a purple corn whiskey aged in European oak exclusively, and I fell in love with this barrel. And I tried to convince Jonathan that we need to enter this in a competition.
Now, mind you, it was 16-month-old whiskey at the time.
Gotcha.
And so
So very young.
we really liked it. So we thought it was a little cocky for us to start entering it in competition.
Almost hubris.
It would definitely be a little bit of hubris at that point. But it's only hubris if you fail, I hear.
True. True.
So
Thank you.
But
So this guy, it's no longer 16 months old. We've held on to it for a little bit longer. So this guy, I think it came in right at 29 months for the youngest barrel this year. The oldest cask in it, it's a 3-barrel blend. The oldest cask was right around 3.5 years old. So it's 3.5, a 3-year-old, and then 29 months blended together.
Now, did Nancy Fraley do a little bit of work on this as well?
Not this
Not
year's
so much
batch.
this year's, okay. Because I know that was educational for us as well, how Nancy comes in and helps and brings her nose and her personal talent. But that helps you guys work and learn as you're going as well.
yeah, we kind of view ourselves as proteges of Nancy. And so, but Nancy did help as far as coming in when we will actually go through barrels, and we call it checking barrel health, which just sounds like a much better version of we're going to taste all the barrels today. And so
It's a great way to come in on Monday morning.
she did help us kind of isolate some of those barrels as these are definitely Hubris barrels. When we go through them, so
I gotta admit, that would make for a great Monday.
Yeah.
Most people are like, it's Monday, I've got all week, and you're like, what are we doing on this Monday? We're calling barrel check.
yeah.
It's barrel check Monday. So yeah, Nancy comes in for us. Initially, she was coming in 3 or 4 times a year. Now she comes in once or twice a year to help us especially when we have to do the full load. We're really starting to point barrels in certain directions.
We need a little less supervision now, and Nancy got super busy because she's that good.
Yeah.
So she was the one that actually, because we originally, this purple corn, we'd put in an American oak, we'd put in the European oak, we'd put in a bunch of different types of casks, and she was the first one when she, I think it was at 2 months old, smelled it and goes, this is going to be great. You need all the purple corn needs to go into European oak. Just do it, trust me. And we never looked back after that. It's kind of a match made in heaven. It really is.
Now describe this. I get it. It's a little bit drier to me.
So the European oak is going to be a little bit more tannic than American oak. So it's going to have a little bit. It's going to be a little bit drier, just naturally. So you're not going to get quite the sweetness that you are with American oak. Not quite as much vanilla. It's again a lot more baking spice generally. That's going to be really pushing into that.
Wow.
Because for corn whiskey, it's in a used cask. So we use our own bourbon casks. It does allow some of those lighter notes to pop out. So a lot of the kind of the honeyed orange blossom, those type of flavors we tend to associate with this particular whiskey.
This is 100% corn, purple corn.
100%. Well, it's 100% yellow corn and purple corn.
Okay.
So and the way we build our mash bills is actually predominantly a local non-GMO yellow dent. And then what we'll do is we'll layer in a little bit of extra of whatever that mash bill is. So,
Layered in.
Yeah, it's layered in.
Now see, that was the right way.
I believe since I've been here and I've heard layered in, I loved it so much.
That's right.
I've been overusing it.
So
But we use the heirloom corns as our flavoring grain on these mash bills. So instead of using like your wheat as a flavoring grain or the rye as a flavoring grain, we use the heirloom corn. So again, the purple corn or the Bloody Butcher. And the reason that we do that is because you can get a ton of the flavor from those corns, and those corns a lot of times aren't grown in enough volume to do it at 100%, or the yield from 100% of that particular corn would be 30% of what it would be, and
Or they're cost prohibitive, so it's people got to spend money on Pappy. They don't have $5,000 to throw at an Ironroot bottle because it's got special corn, right? So
yeah, I think 100% of some of these specialty corns would probably be like a $300 bottle of whiskey.
Yeah, really.
Which I don't want to charge that because I can't pay that for whiskey every day or most days. So I don't expect other people to do it either.
Well, the way you guys are going, you'll be doing a special one in a few years, and you'll be like, yeah, we're going to do it.
we are going to do 100% purple corn eventually. So
The layers of depth of that.
Say again.
The layers of depth of that. The transitions that goes through.
I know. I agree.
When you get away from just the sweetness of corn, and you start getting to some of those other flavors that corn can bring, it really can turn into really great whiskeys.
Now, walk us through some of your barrel selection. I know the majority, you are using first fill, charred, virgin oak, but you do reuse some of your barrels as well.
Right. For like Hubris is going to be in used casks because it's corn whiskey, so that's being a used barrel or toasted barrels. Corn whiskey can't be in a brand new charred oak cask. Harbinger, all the bourbons are
Corn whiskey cannot be in a
first fill.
that's really the big difference between it and bourbon. So corn whiskey has to have 80% corn. But bourbon can have 100% corn. So our very first Harbinger was actually 100% corn. The real difference between the bourbon and the corn whiskey is the cask. So
it's a used cask versus brand new barrels.
Okay. Now, the Bloody Butcher that you've referenced is this whiskey that's in a barrel that's both charred and toasted.
Correct.
I want to point out that Scott loves to say Bloody Butcher.
I do. That's my favorite one. It is. I like the
somebody
Bloody
asked me if we shouldn't, for marketing purposes, just call it butcher corn. I
No.
think it loses a little bit of
Yeah.
edge when we do it that
But
way.
it sounds Bloody Butcher just sounds like the one you close the night out on.
Right, right.
You go there and what are we in and what's the last dram?
Bloody Butcher.
Bloody Butcher.
Oh, yes.
I mean, that was when we were tasting casks. That was your favorite, was the Bloody Butcher cask.
It was good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, well, and I likened it to this one being Michter's barrel proof rye, and the Bloody Butcher being Michter's toasted barrel rye, just like a lighter, smoother, more finessed version.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, and so we use a lot of toasted and charred barrels. So they'll toast the barrel first. It's usually really deep, heavy toast. It's going to caramelize a lot of those sugars. And then we come back and they do a very light char over the top. So basically a char 1, so it's barely charred. And the reason why we do that is because the weather here is so intense that we get huge temperature swings, but also it's really, really hot. That the whiskey is constantly going in and out of that char layer. And that char layer is kind of a filter, so the bigger that and thicker that heavy char is, the more that your whiskey is getting filtered. So for here, we found, and we have, as we showed you some of the char 3 and char 4 here, the whiskey is lighter and less flavorful in those casks. And it has to do with it's just getting filtered that much more. So that's why we prefer to use those lighter chars. So generally, most of the whiskey we have is char 1, char 2.
Good.
Yeah, that's very good.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well,
Yeah.
thanks for having us down.
No problem. Thanks
Killing
for
it.
coming.
Yeah,
The Bloody Butcher.
that's right.
All right. Scotch it, you Scotch gods.
Sláinte.
Sláinte.
Dummies.